Listen, don't tell anyone I said this, but I think this game might have a crush on the internet. Seriously, it's all the freaking thing talks about. And like, I don't want to be judgmental or anything, but it seems a bit obsessive to me. I mean, all these notes and, it's like, it's constantly texting you to hook it up to the internet. I'm sorry, is this a video game or Windows XP? Now, of course, beneath all the persistent prompts that are like getting instant messages from a stalker, there is a very cool video game with a very cool focus. Heroes of Ruin comes from N-Space, studio that did games like the GameCube shooter Geist and the DS version of Modern Warfare, two games that actually parallel Heroes of Ruin in how they defiantly approach perceived limitations. No one will care about a mature FPS on the GameCube. A handheld Call of Duty is destined to be a terrible Call of Duty, and in this case, an action RPG built around online multiplayer just won't work on a Nintendo platform, and yet N-Space, for better or worse, has delivered all three.
Never cross us, sorcerer.
Now obviously, for Heroes of Ruin, it helps to have Square Enix on the box, not to mention a little development help from Nintendo. This is a dungeon-crawling action game with lots of RPG elements, and in addition to filling a hole in the DS library, Heroes of Ruin also pushes the hardware more than any game to date. Or at least, in some ways. You start by choosing a character from 4 classes of a standard variety. There are healers, bruisers, magicians, you get the idea. From there, it's your job to save the world or something. One of the problems with this game is that its story, character, settings, they're all very generic and instantly forgettable, but one of the game's advantages is that, again, it's totally crushing on the internet. The second you load up Heroes of Ruin, the game practically begs you to connect. You're given options for online, for StreetPass, for SpotPass, and it's all before you even see the game's menu. And once you're there, the default option is to take your game online. You can embark on your quest with up to 3 other players, making a 4-player journey the game's preferred course of action. There's voice chat, online statistics. No 3DS game has pushed online more than Heroes of Ruin.
That's better!
But the funny thing about this game is that as much as it pushes the envelope in terms of online, it's totally standard in every other regard. Yeah, it's the generic worlds and story, but it's also the gameplay itself. This plays like any other similar game. You level up, you unlock magic spells with skill branches. It's not a negative thing, it's just predictable. And frankly, Heroes of Ruin gets away with it because it's on a system where games like this are obviously sparse. Now, in a sense, it's a victory that Heroes of Ruin works, let alone exists. Sure, it's easy, it feels kind of standard, and its appearance leaves a lot to be desired, but the drawback to N-Space's Nintendo titles have never really been the games themselves. It's always a question of whether or not the Nintendo audience will care. Sadly, the doubters were right about a game like Geist. No one cared. Whether they're right this time is anyone's guess, but if you're looking for an online adventure for your 3DS, the search begins and ends with Heroes of Ruin.